Hello, I'm Karma Kitaj, and I'm your host for A Livelihood, New Adventures as We Age. Today I'm going to introduce you to Judy Rosenberg, who has created several successful bakeries in the Boston area. And so we're going to be able to see some pictures of, and we're also going to find out from Judy about how she has created herself as this bakery entrepreneur. So welcome, Judy.
Thank you. Nice to be.
And I know you were surprised to find out that I had never even been in Rosie's Bakery.
That's right.
And I live very nearby. And then I told you, well, you know, I'm just not that much of a sweet person.
Not a sugar
so
person.
I never even walked in there.
Right.
But then I did. So let's start maybe with your background. I know you said that you grew up in a family in New York who had just a wonderful palate
Yep.
for food.
Yep. Mother was not domestic, but always had incredible food in the house, shopped at New York's best bakeries, and, you know, we all had a kind of a lust for food in my family. It was a very sensual experience.
Yeah, but you didn't start out your professional life or your adult life
No.
with sweets, did you?
No, not at all. I came from a family that, you know, my father was very intellectual. He, you know, I put a lot of energy into my academics and studying, and I was a French major at UC Berkeley, and then I had gone to a very, you know, competitive private school. Then I went to Berkeley and studied French, and then I got out of college, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I really wasn't interested in anything academic. And
So you didn't see yourself as being a French teacher?
no. However, my father and mother did encourage me to go back to get a master's in education. So I did go back to do that, and I student taught French and decided at that moment that there was no way that I wanted to teach, because the system just stifled my creativity every inch of the way. And then went to art school, which was the first thing that I ever loved and felt a passion for. Got out of art school, decorated some Valentine's Day cookies as an art project, and hey, you know, at the age of 28, discovered that baking was something that I had a natural talent for. And at that point, there was no question in my mind that I would pursue that career.
Do you think that you use some of your artistic creativity in your business?
Absolutely. I think that when I first started, I felt like the way in which I created the desserts and the way in which I presented them was, you know, it had a lot to do with like my art background, or just like how you see things and how you present things to other people, and how you make things look attractive and you make things look, you know, voluptuous or whatever. And I mean, I think that a lot went into marketing, and I think that in retail I've always put a lot of emphasis on how things are marketed.
So would you say that most of your creativity is siphoned into your business? Or do you do something else with your artwork?
Well, I've started drawing again. But I think it has, for the past 38 years, it's been absolutely siphoned into my business.
So you mentioned that as a young person, you sort of meandered around a bit before you found that this was you.
Right.
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 And I think you mentioned that you worked as a barista, right?
I was, from the moment I left college with all my education, I went right into waitressing. At a groovy little place in Harvard Square, and I just found that I loved doing things that were kind of like non-cerebral.
And you started your first bakery. So which one was the first one?
Well, the first one was actually in Harvard Square, and what had happened was, after art school, when I decorated these cookies and brought them around to little galleries and boutiques, I brought them to one bakery in Harvard Square, and I wasn't at that point thinking baked goods so much as I was thinking artistic creations. And they called me the next day and said, what else can you bake? So I baked for them in Harvard Square. After a few years, I realized I didn't really need them. So I left them and I went to Inman Square, and it was perfect. And I'm still in Inman Square. Mm-hmm. We bought the building, so we've been there for a long time. Mm. And then Chestnut Hill.
Let's talk about your cookbooks a little bit. So the first one came out when?
The first one came out in 81, and no, 91. 91. And I felt like I wanted to share my recipes with people. And I believed in them, and I was also very disappointed in many of the baking books that I had tried. Even some of the people who were well known, I found a lot of the recipes disappointing, and I found them hard to follow and kind of not specific enough. So I decided to write a book that was very clear and that would demystify baking.
Baking has always scared me a bit because of this. As you say, the chemistry of baking, because it's not like making a stew or a soup that you can put a little of this and a little of that in and it'll be fine.
You have to be not afraid to fail, and you have to understand that even with a cookbook where, like I tested all these recipes in my oven with my pans, and that when somebody else gets into their kitchen, there are going to be variables. So you may have to make something a few times before you get it where it needs to be. But each time you make something, it's a learning experience, and you get more and more, you get better and better at understanding the chemistry of baking. So
the name of your new book is what?
Oh, such a long title. I've had 3 long titles. It's the Rosie's Bakery. I think it's all butter, cream-filled, sugar-packed baking book. They've all had really long names, and it confuses me which is which. And I came up with my, this was probably my first brownie, which was the chocolate orgasm, which, in those days, that was a really astounding name for a product, but it's actually been very famous because of that name.
So what is in the chocolate orgasms other than chocolate?
It's just it's butter, sugar, chocolate, and eggs. And I think the name kind of sprung out of just how intense, the eating experience is. I think it's just like one of the great pleasures in life is eating something that you love. So I kind of did a play on that.
So the next thing we want to do while we're in Rosie's Bakery here is to see what your role is in the kitchen.
Yep. Okay.
So why don't we do that?
We're only baking a couple today because it's a slow day, but I'm testing them. I do all the pie baking for the stores, just because nobody in the kitchen is going to be quite as compulsive as I am about really nurturing each pie.
So when you say compulsive, what are you looking for when you're testing?
I'm looking for the perfect texture of the apple, because when the pie comes out of the oven, it's going to continue to bake a little bit. So I want a little bit of resistance. I don't want total mush, and I don't want it to be hard. So I kind of know now, like, what's perfect, and I don't trust anybody else with this aspect. So I'm going to put them here to cool. Every day when I come in, I check the cookies. Now these are perfect. They've got the seared on the outside and the white on the inside.
So does that mean that it's going to be a little mushy on the inside?
It's going to be chewy on the inside and crunchy around the edges. Okay. So what I've found being in business this long is that, you train people and they get it perfect, but then over time, if you don't kind of stay on top of it, it moves a millimeter away gradually, another millimeter, so that people kind of always need, I'm always, checking the cookies, checking the rugelach, and if I don't think something is the way it needs to be, then we will not sell it.
So thank you for coming, Judy.
Well, thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it, and this is so much fun to eat this.
Yeah. You deserve it.